doesn't matter whether you're a singer or a dancer, a lecturer, a stand-up comedian, it doesn't matter what you do. The moment you hear the applause, you're on stage and it's just you, with this sea of faces staring back at you, people you don't know. And you get this heaving in the pit of your stomach that they call stage fright. But as a hypnotist, I have a very great advantage over the singer, the dancer, the comedian, the lecturer, when it comes to stage fright. Because I know that no matter how scared I may be of what you lot could do to me, it's nothing compared with how scared you lot are of what I am going to be doing to some of you later on this evening. Firstly, I've got to get this hypnosis show out of the way. So, we found your level quickly enough. My name is Martin Taylor, for those of you wandered in since the introduction, and this is a sort of presentation about hypnosis. I have no idea what kind of forms it's going to take, because you're a very different audience from the sort of people I mainly speak to. One thing, a couple of bits of housekeeping to get out of the way. Firstly, you've been asked to turn your phones on silent. If you could turn them off, because this is a strange radio mic. I know some mobile phones will interfere with a radio mic, and otherwise we'll get this stupid noise through. So if you could actually turn your phones off rather than on silent, that would help. The second piece of our housekeeping is I wear a monocle, and unless I explain to you the only reason I wear the thing is because I'm very short-sighted in one eye and have very good vision in the other eye, you'll spend the entire talk thinking, why the hell is he wearing a monocle? What's that got to do with hypnosis? It's got nothing to do with hypnosis. I wear it simply so that I can see you out of both eyes. If it starts glinting in the light, and it sometimes does, or if I get fed up with it, I'll take it out. But it's just eccentric, and I like the thing. Okay, can I see who I'm working to start with? So who here are, there's supposed to be a lot of people from Oxford Brookes. Who here is from Oxford Brookes University? Who's students of Oxford Brookes? You're all sitting over there and you're all together, fine. Who's from Oxford University? Okay, you're up here. And you lot are just sort of drifters in, wandered in, hangers on, general sort of people who don't, okay, fine. General skeptics and people who are interested in thinking, apparently. This is what this week is all about. The format of what I normally do, a lot of this is going to be a bit of life history, a lot of it's going to be about how I got into hypnosis and what I do for a living and my rather unusual take on hypnosis. Basically, I started out doing this for student unions in ways which you'll hear, and put together a lecture demonstration about hypnosis for students. I got sidetracked briefly, started to do a cabaret act, which I still do. I still work in nightclubs, I still work in student unions. But the main thing I do these days is a lecture demonstration on hypnosis for schools. And I do a lot of work in sixth forms, and I go in, which is where I've done twice today already, you just go in, and as part of their general studies program, I do a half-an-hour chat about how hypnosis really works, and then we do a little bit of demonstration at the end. Tonight, you're going to get a kind of, depending on what, because it's sort of a heterogeneous audience, you're going to get half the nightclub act, you're going to get half the lecture, you're going to get a bit of life story thrown in, and I'll see which bits you laugh at and which bits you seem to be enjoying and which bits seem to be going well, otherwise we'll cut stuff out. We're certainly going to be incorporating some demonstrations. We'll get some chairs up somewhere through, we'll have a 5-minute loo break. I'm going to put some chairs up on the stage, we'll probably switch to working on the stage. I'll take volunteers out here if that's what you want. Now, assuming you are happy with that kind of format, because I don't know whether, particularly the students, whether you come along just expecting me to do the cabaret show where I just get people out and make them look dickheads on stage, which I can do, and I know often this is what a student wants, but I don't know whether this is what these guys want, I don't know. Is that what you prefer? If you want me just to do the nightclub act where I get people to make them look dickheads on stage, I can do that. Is that what you want? Easy answer. So, I know you lot all go, no, 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 and the students over here thinking, well, maybe that might be kind of fun. I don't know what he's really going to do with people up there. We can be a bit democratic about this. Those people who think it would be fun, those people who think it would be fair just to do the nightclub act where I make people look dickheads, would you put your hands up, please? Can we just see if there are people out there who would like to see that kind of, yeah, one guy on his own sort of, well, I don't mind. What's your name? Tom. I thought it might be. Tom, the only one who even twitches a muscle when we talk about that. Well, we can't do the show with just Tom on stage on his own, can we? Apart from which we don't need to use hypnosis to make Tom look a dickhead. He's doing perfectly well on his own. So we refer to the lecture demonstration format. I think what I'm going to start out by doing is telling you how I got into hypnosis, tell you a little bit about the way my career as a hypnotist progressed and how it formed the kind of skeptical approach to hypnosis which I now have. I'll drift into telling you a little bit more about the way I now believe hypnosis works and tell you some of the experiences I've had in my work as a hypnotist. We'll possibly incorporate one or two little demonstrations as we go along, but then we'll have a 5-minute break or so. Then we'll get some chairs out up on stage. We'll take some volunteers from among you and I'll demonstrate some of the things that I've been talking about. Does that sound okay with people? Because there's not a lot else I can do at this stage, I promise you. If I'm going to be talking for the next hour or so, you'll have to excuse me if I keep rinsing my mouth out. No expense spared at Oxford Brookes, you see. I'm not going to tell you what's in that bottle till the end of the talk. Okay, the first, how to start. I started out when I was an undergraduate. I was an undergraduate at Cambridge, where I got a maths degree. But while I was getting a maths degree, I drifted into the Magic Society and learned how to entertain with sleight of hand and close-up magic. I went and did my postgrad at Imperial in London, and when I was there, I met a guy called Colin Chave, who did informal hypnosis demonstrations. He would go around the various halls of residence demonstrating hypnosis. And I did a similar kind of thing with magic, and we became a kind of double act. We got invited to parties together, and he would do the hypnosis and I would do the magic. And he would watch me do magic, and he learned a bit of magic, and I wanted him to do the hypnosis, I learned a bit of hypnosis. And he did the old-fashioned stage hypnotist act, which everybody thought was necessary in those days. And he would get people out, he would swing a thing in front of their eyes and talk for 20 minutes about how they were going into a trance and how they were falling asleep. And he could, on some people, produce various hypnotic effects. And I thought this was really rather cool. And I thought, yeah, okay, this is good, we want to try this out. And thought about this, watched what he did, felt it was, it wasn't exactly sparkly and dramatic, but it was quite an interesting thing to be able to do. And I didn't really get into it until a couple of years later on, when I was chatting up a girl in her room, and I mentioned that yes, I know about magic, I do close-up magic, and I know about hypnosis. And she said, what? You know about hypnosis? Fantastic! I've always wanted to be hypnotized. Come on, you've got to hypnotize me now! Oh, shit. You can't actually turn around at that stage and say, well, look, I've never actually done this before, let alone hypnotized anybody. So I had to go through with this, and I had the presence of mind to get a friend, and I got my friend Charles in, who was my flatmate at the time, and we sat there, and I did what I'd seen this guy Colin do. We got a little swingy amulet thing and swung this in front of this girl's eyes, and eventually her eyes closed and she slumped over, and I said, okay, just carry on going deep. It's incredibly boring, the traditional hypnosis method. You stand there for 20 minutes, half an hour, saying you're getting very, very sleepy. All the while, your body's getting heavy. You go nuts. But anyway, we did this for about half an hour. And then I said, okay, let's see if it works. When you open your eyes, for no reason at all, you will take your shoe off. And so we said, okay. Said, open your eyes. And she opened her eyes, looked around the room, and took her shoe off. Why did you do that? I don't know, it just seemed... How long do you think you had your eyes shut for? I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. She did that for half an hour. So we think, well, this isn't right. Now, I'd seen Colin do this, and I knew that once you've done it once, you can do it very fast the second time. So he said, well, let's try this again. Come on, close your eyes. So she closed her eyes, and deep sleep, as usual, kind of crap that hypnotists do. This time, when you open your eyes, you will turn all the ornaments on the mantelpiece so they're facing the wall. She opens her eyes, straight up, jumps across, turns all the ornaments on the mantelpiece. What the hell's going on? This is amazing. We've got to try this again. Come on, do this again. Close your eyes, relax, deep, heavy. And she's out there, out cold, and Okay, this time when you open your eyes, I looked at Charles looked at me, and we looked at this gorgeous girl sitting there in front of us. We looked back at each other and we both went, no. Too easy. But this was how things got started, and I then spent the next summer pestering everybody I could to sit still for long enough while we swung a watch in front of their eyes for about half an hour. And some of them we got this response with. Some of them worked well, some of them didn't. College started the following October. I go back to college, and some friends of mine who set up a lecture society. Every week, an interesting lecturer comes along, and to launch this thing, huge, big fanfare lecture, they're getting Eric Laithwaite to give his lecture on gyroscopes. So you're probably old enough to remember this was a fantastically entertaining lecture by a well-regarded engineer, and they knew they were going to get a huge crowd to launch this thing. The morning of the show, Laithwaite phones up, he's got flu, he can't do it. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to have 300 people showing up, launch this whole society. Martin, you're the entertainer, get out there, do a lecture on anything that's going to hold a crowd for an hour. Hypnotism, this thing you've been doing all summer. Get out there, do a talk on hypnotism. Okay, so I go out there and with virtually no preparation at all, talk about hypnosis. And I start out by talking a little bit about the history and what little bits I've read about this, and then took a couple of volunteers, not having any great hope of success, but took a couple of volunteers from the audience. One of them was a guy called Palab Ghosh, who's now senior science correspondent at the BBC. And he came out, and he was great. I mean, he sat there, closed his eyes, we went through the procedure, relaxed him, when you open your eyes, you'll think you're playing a violin. Palab opens his eyes, fantastic, off he goes, playing a violin. We get more people out. We got an opera singer. You know, a girl who thinks she's not going. When you open your eyes, you'll be an opera singer. So she gets up, she sings this fantastic aria. Dreadful, but she sings it. But the audience love it, clap, you know, lots of applause for this, brilliant, well done, encore. So she gets up and does an encore. And word spreads. Hypnosis show, the college newspaper reported this in their main story the following week. Lecture success, audience falls asleep. And they wanted to do it again. They get me back, and I start doing this again. Word spreads, we get publicity done, and I start doing this around other colleges and universities. This is how we get going. But after a while, the reason I'm telling you all of this is because I didn't learn from another hypnotist. Most people you see who do hypnosis start out by learning from a hypnotist. They get someone who teaches them how to do it. And they take on, unquestioningly, the method for hypnotizing people. They read in Orman McGill's book, or they learn from Ken Webster's School of Hypnosis or someone. The way you do it is you sit people down, you do a hand clasp test, you then spend about 10 minutes telling them to relax, you get them to look up at the ceiling, and they will go into a trance. You can tell if they're in a proper trance because of such and such. Who knows? I did this, but I noticed something really rather strange. One of the things I used to finish my show with in those days, I would say to people, when you open your eyes, water is going to taste like whatever you like to drink. Okay, and people would open their eyes and say, oh, it's beer, oh, it's whiskey, oh, it's something. And afterwards, people would come up to me and they'd say, they're drinking whiskey, are they going to get drunk? I don't know, let's find out. And I noticed something very interesting. After we'd done this, either all of them would get drunk, or none of them would get drunk. What's going on? So we started to think about this. Because it's clearly nothing I've said. This isn't something I have done to each of them individually. Otherwise, it would be having an independent effect on all of them. Something is happening between them. They're kind of communicating between each other as to how they are supposed to behave. And then I thought, well, maybe we can kind of tweak this a little. So, by way of experiment, again, we get them all, and this alcohol drunkenness was a good thing, because everybody, students, they're drinking beer, they're drinking whiskey, it's only water, but they think it's beer and whiskey. And if I just said to one of them, it's funny, isn't it, you'll never get drunk, because it's only water. you'd find then that none of them would get drunk. Even after he was out of the hypnosis, if I said, and later on, you're going to be really pissed drinking all of this, all of them would get drunk. This was nothing I said to them. The accepted theory said you have to tell them while they are hypnotized. But I found this just wasn't true. I could affect what they were doing, even when they were out of the trance, just almost by making it an aside. And I could qualify some of the things that I was saying. Occasionally, I would forget to remove a suggestion. I would say to somebody, when I clap my hands, you will pat the top of your head without knowing why. I clap my hands, and people would clap. And then at the end of the show, I realised to my horror, I'd forgotten this. I'd forgotten to take it away. And whenever I clap my hands, some guy, he hits the top of his head. And people say, what are you going to do about him? He's going to still, he's gone. He's still... And improvising, I would say, oh, it'll wear off. It won't last very long, half an hour tops, and it'll stop working. What do I find if I bump into the guy later on in the bar? All his friends have said, oh, it's supposed to wear off in half an hour. So I can then go up to him and I'd say, hey, does it work? Clap, clap. Nothing. On the other hand, if I knew I was going to meet him in the bar later, I could say to his friends, it'll never go away unless I clear it. He's stuck like that forever. And again, friends would tell him this. I would go see him in the bar later on, clap, clap, bang, 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 off he'd go. We can influence this even after these guys are hypnotized. Okay. So it's now becoming clear that hypnosis is something very, very different from what people say it is. There is no need to have people in a trance. There is no need to have people actually hypnotized. So I then took on an extension as a big experiment, leap of faith. All hypnotists start by doing some basic catalepsy or autosuggestion, call it what you will, idiomotor thing. Do you know the thing where you get one hand to go up, one hand to come down? Some nods, some shakes of heads. I'm going to do it now to spoil the flow. We'll do it in a second. You say to people, hold both hands out in front, close your eyes, imagine with your left hand is getting very heavy, a big heavy weight tied around it. Imagine your right hand has a hydrogen balloon tied around it, and really make it really your mind. Concentrate on it, concentrate on it. And then when you get them to open their eyes after a minute or so of this, you'll find they're sitting there like this. You can then get people to lose their balance. You say to people, you're falling over. A standard example, which I do for everybody, is to say, think of saliva. When I talk about saliva, you all will immediately drool. Because as soon as I talk about saliva, you're conscious of the spit in your mouth. And I can see people now, the more I talk about it, you're fighting hard not to swallow. But you can't not swallow, because you know while I'm talking about saliva, you can't not think about what I talk about. The more I talk about it, the harder it is not to think about it. You can't not think about it. The more you think about the saliva, the more you're drooling, and the more you're drooling, the harder. And I see you all out there now going, a lot of you have swallowed already. Some of you look like you're used to it. It's simply, I can't believe I said that. It's simply a matter of suggestion. And again, this is how hypnotists start, with little tests like this. You build them up, you then tell people their hands are stuck together, and you find everybody's hands stick together. And I thought, I wonder if we can do the whole show like this. I wonder if there's any need for an induction. Maybe not. And I tried it at the show, and it works. You don't need any kind of hypnosis in the show. All this idea of swinging the watch, all this idea of staring up at the lights, all this idea of playing dreamy music to put people in a trance is not necessary. You just get people out, you're going to have to close their eyes if you want to. I generally get people to close their eyes because it just stops them staring at the audience. If they don't, the audience pulls silly faces to make them laugh. You just get people out, you're going to have to close their eyes, and you tell them what you want them to do. And they do it. Incredible. Why do people do this? Well, we start doing the research, we start reading around. And basically, I've got two lines on hypnosis. Firstly, how stage hypnosis, how to explain this to you? I'm not used to explaining this to a skeptic audience such as yourselves, so let's put it like this. The first problem I have with hypnosis is everybody does it their own way, and and everybody assumes that what hypnosis is what they do. The stage hypnotist gets people out, and he knows the right way to hypnotize people is to swing a watch, is to make them look at the ceiling, is to make them breathe deeply, is to play fast, loud, beaty music when they come up on stage, is to get people who are slightly drunk. The therapy hypnotist, the hypnotherapist, knows the right way to get people is to get people really calm. It's no good playing loud music, that gets them excited. You get them calm, you get them relaxed, and you get them to drain all the tension out of every muscle. The research hypnotist uses a different approach. He will do it through catalepsy. He'll say, I want you to make yourself completely rigid. Different cultures induce hypnosis in completely different ways, and yet they all can produce similar effects. Now, one of the theories I have, is that hypnosis is this enormously complex cocktail of 100 different ideas, all of which can manifest themselves in different ways. And people just latch on to the bit they're used to, because it's what works for them. And they think that is hypnosis. People repeat things about hypnosis which they've been taught without any thought for whether they are true or not. It's just what they've been taught. And again, part of the problem is you want the audience to believe them. A great example, a stage hypnotist will nearly always say, hypnotism is a perfectly natural phenomenon. We go into, actually stage hypnotists, well, the most literal of the bunch, they always say, it's a perfectly natural phenomenon. One of them drives me nuts. Hypnosis, they say, is a perfectly natural phenomenon. When you take people out on stage by not doing anything that you don't do several times a day yourself. Do you ever find yourself drifting off in a lecture where after 10 minutes you've got no idea that's hypnosis! You are under hypnosis! Do you ever find yourself driving a car on a long journey and when you get somewhere and you've got no idea how... That's hypnosis! What do they mean by that? Do they mean this is, is that the same as when they're getting people out on stage, making them run around thinking they're a chicken? You get other people who say, no, it's only hypnosis if you actually got people to the state where they can hallucinate. Well, does that apply to the therapist who simply says to someone, when you open your eyes, you'll no longer need to smoke cigarettes? Because he's not hallucinating. Everybody has their own definition of hypnosis, their own ideas as to what it is, their own ideas as to how it works. And I think that nobody really understands it. And so much of the confusion, so much of why people haven't researched hypnosis as carefully as they might, is they simply believe what they've been told and do it in the manner of the person who taught them. If they were taught by a stage hypnotist, they get people up on stage, they play loud music, they get them to stare at the lights. If they were taught by a therapist, they get people to relax and so forth. All these different ways. Hypnosis is a complex cocktail of so many different psychological phenomena, possibly physiological phenomena, but certainly psychological phenomena, and nobody really disentangles them. There's a lot of people's interest not to disentangle them. I use all of them on stage. I'm going to explain what I use in a moment. But whether this is the same hypnosis everybody else uses, I don't know. And I think it's very dangerous just to say, this is hypnosis. I know a man who hypnotizes like this. Would it work if you did? I don't know. I don't know what he's doing. I'm not him. I do it my way. And the one thing that I can tell you about the way I present hypnosis is there is nothing physiological in it at all. And I think there's very little physiological in it from what most people do. It is just psychological. When I do it, I use three things: suggestion, peer pressure, and obedience. Let's just tell you a little bit about each of those. Suggestion we've already covered. It's the idea that you all experienced it. I talk about saliva and you all start to dribble down your shirts, We all know that if I walk along one of these planks across the floor, it's very easy to walk down a plank like that without losing my balance. I just about turn around without losing my balance and walk back again. But if this were a strip of wood the same width, held 50 feet up in the air, do you think I could do the same physical act just as easily? No way. Psychologically, because of what my mind knows, the suggestion of what will happen if I fall completely disorients my sense of balance. And suggestion is the first thing, the key thing on which any stage hypnotist's work is going to be based. This idea of losing your balance or salivating, obviously familiar with all of you. What you will not be so familiar with is that you can take this to extremes, and you can say to somebody who's used to being suggested to, hey look, here comes an elephant walking in through the door. And people will actually see an elephant walking in through the door. They will say they do. I did this at Eastbourne College a couple of years ago. Somebody saw the elephant so realistically, he set the fire alarm off. You try explaining that to the headmaster when he comes round. Again, more evidence of different people responding to hypnosis in different ways. You ask them afterwards, independently, what they saw. If you ask them together, did you see an elephant? They will all say, yes, we saw an elephant. Separate them and say, what did you see? Very interesting. Some of them will say, I didn't see an elephant. I knew there was nothing there. I just wanted to do what everybody else did because I would have felt a bit of a lemon if I didn't. Some people say, no, I didn't see the elephant, but there was just something in me that compelled me to act as if there was an elephant. I don't know why, I just had to go along with it. And then there's another guy who looks at me in complete astonishment and says, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? I saw an elephant. I wouldn't have gone along with this if there wasn't an elephant there. I saw the damn thing up there on stage. Hypnosis, I think, works very, very differently in different people's minds. And it's a huge mistake to assume it's the same for everybody, and a huge mistake to try and label one phenomenon, hypnosis. But suggestion, we use a great deal. We use peer pressure. Everybody likes to do what their friends do. Very, very strong social impulse, particularly strong in young people. There's no coincidence that young people are most of the good hypnotic subjects on stage. This is why I work to sixth formers and students if I can. They're only relatively recently emerged from the insecurity of childhood, still coming to grips with the problems of adultery. They want, keep up, they want to do what their friends do. Everybody does. If you are in the wild, if you are an antelope, one of a herd of antelope drinking at a water hole, and one of the antelopes sees a lion in the distance, and he goes, blimey, a lion! Boom, legs it off as fast as he can. Now you're another antelope in the herd. You haven't seen the lion, but you have seen your friend run away. What do you do? Well, if you're the sort of antelope who says, where did he go? Seems in a bit of a hurry. I'll finish my drink. I'll see where you get eaten by the lion. If you are the kind of antelope who says, he panicked! Everybody panicked! I know what's going on, just run! You don't get eaten by the lion. Doesn't matter if there isn't a lion. He might have been startled by David Attenborough in the long grass. As long as there is a lion, his friend panics, he panics too, he's safe. And it's bred into us through generation after generation of evolution. Do what your friends do. Because that way there is security. That way there is safety. And the final thing I use is straightforward obedience. Because people like to do what they're told. Again, ever since we're just, little kids, do what you're told. You start out, Mummy said, don't touch that, it's hot, it'll burn you. You learn that the hard way. You get a bit older. You do what your friends tell you. Come to this party, it's going to be great. Don't see that film, it's rubbish. And by doing what your friends tell you, you benefit. You enjoy a good party. You don't waste money on a rubbish film. Unless you've got a particularly sadistic bunch of friends. And it carries on right up to, you sixth form. People say work hard in your studies, you'll end up going to a good university. Look where that got you. Obedience, very, very powerful. And those of you who are familiar with the Milgram experiment will know, again, it's much stronger than most people think. The Milgram experiment, Stanley Milgram, as part of a scientific experiment, tricked people into thinking that they were giving an electric shock to a subject every time he got a question wrong in a test. And the guy's an actor, the machines are fake, but nevertheless, most people were prepared to carry on electrocuting this guy, more and more pain, even with him begging for mercy, screaming out loud, and eventually collapsing, apparently with a heart attack. And they would say to Milgram, what do I do? This man's dead. And they'd say, it's very important for the success of the experiment, you must continue. Increase the voltage. All right then, right, back up they go. Milgram found, Derren Brown repeated this in the 1990s, people are prepared to electrocute a corpse, even, simply because a scientist in a white coat says it's very important for the success of an experiment. Obedience. Again, again, runs much deeper than we think. That is what I use on stage. Suggestion, peer pressure, and obedience, combined with a lot of stagecraft to create the illusion of putting people in a trance. There is no trance. Certainly in my show, I don't believe in any stage show, and I'm pretty certain there is no trance in a therapist's room, in an experimental hypnotist's room. I won't go so far as to say I do not believe in hypnosis, but I think the whole concept of hypnosis is so exaggerated, so distorted, and certainly what you see on stage in a stage show, certainly what you see on stage in my show, is nothing physiological happening in your mind. It is tricks of suggestion, peer pressure, obedience, all combined with stagecraft to create the illusion of a trance. What is astonishing that I found is that even having told you all of that, it still works. The downside is it doesn't work as well. I know that if I stood out here and told you, yes, I can hypnotize people, I've studied it for 20 years, there is a powerful force which exerts over your mind. You're not all skeptical, you wouldn't believe that. But I know that if I say this to the average university audience, the average school audience, they'll believe it, and they'll certainly all come up here and they'll believe they were hypnotized. And afterwards they'll say, oh, that was really weird, I felt he was taking over my mind. For just these reasons, suggestion, peer pressure, and obedience. Okay. There is no trance, there is no sleep. And when I work with people, when I work with some of you later on, you will find there isn't anything compelling you to do the things that happen. If I say you think you're a washing machine, don't believe you'll lose control of your muscles and you'll stand there going, wham, wham, wham. You'll think, no, wouldn't it be fun to pretend to be a washing machine? It'll be great to entertain these people by pretending to be a washing machine. I don't want to spoil the fun, this is great, I'm enjoying this. And you want to do it so much that you want to pretend to be a washing machine. That is how it works. Okay, let me, what should we talk about? Let's tell you some of the things we've done using hypnosis. For instance, just sort of very briefly, it's interesting the way it works in therapy. The way you can produce these effects in people's minds using psychology. I don't believe there's anything physiological, but to change habit disorders. Stopping people smoking. Why do people stop smoking when they go to a hypnotist? Because they do. I mean, it is statistically shown that this is the best way to get people to give up. Is it because they think, wow, he took over my mind, there must be something special there? Is it because they've paid a lot of money to the hypnotist, and they don't want to come back to their friends and say, a complete waste of time, what a charlatan he was, he just sat there and swung the watch in front of my eyes. You actually want to admit that you've done something sensible. Is it that you're using the hypnosis as a kick to your willpower? I don't know. I don't profess to know how hypnosis works. My crusade is simply to say to people, look, it doesn't work the way he believes it does. It doesn't work how he believes it does. It doesn't work how he believes it does. Because they're all telling you different things. It's a mixture of these things. But nevertheless, you can get people to give up smoking by reinforcing various suggestions you give them. I suspect it's largely suggestion. You say to people, when you stop smoking cigarettes, you'll feel a lot more healthy. Which obviously they're going to do. As you feel more healthy, you will be more determined to give up smoking, which they will. They feel more healthy, okay, I'll be more determined. And you produce this kind of positive feedback loop. I feel healthier, I smoke less. So I smoke less, so I feel healthier. Positive feedback. And you do this with lots of things. When students come to me and they want help concentrating on their studies, you set up a positive feedback loop. I work harder at my studies, so I enjoy them more. I enjoy them more, therefore I work harder. Positive feedback. Working through suggestion. Working through peer pressure and obedience, maybe. But I don't believe through any kind of trance reprogramming of the mind. Now, there are areas where it does seem to have something to do with something which we don't understand in the mind. An example from sports hypnosis, sports psychology. All sports teams have a psychologist on board. People realise that psychology is very important in getting people to perform better at sports. And the technique that hypnotists will use is they will get people to watch themselves on a big video screen. And you'll watch somebody playing a golf swing or something, and you'll see it up there in a funny, fuzzy, old-fashioned grey, black and white kind of picture. Not very good sound, and sort of those funny lines you get down an old-fashioned picture. You see somebody, you see yourself doing a golf swing. And you analyse it. You say, why is that not a good golf swing? And you can play the video backwards, you can freeze frame it, you can stop it, and you can say, yes, I'm not keeping my eye on the ball, I'm not keeping my arms straight, I don't know anything about golf, but you get this thing and you watch it, and you do it again and again until you can see yourself in this video doing it properly. And then you bring up the colour, and you bring up the sound, and you play it in surround sound, and you take it out to a wide screen, and you watch yourself on the screen doing it over and over and over again. And you lock this somehow into your subconscious. And the NLP types talk about anchoring, which is some kind of physical gesture or something that you do. You maybe make a fist or tap your head or something to lock it in. And people have found that by watching this, by making it real, when you actually go out on the golf course, you then do the anchoring thing, if that's what you're into, you make the fist, you tap your head, you are then able to bring back all the emotions that you felt when you were watching the film in this imaginary cinema. You can play the golf swing, appreciably better. Hypnosis, hypnotherapy does work, but the mechanism of how it works is still hugely open to dispute. And on the negative side, of course, cults use a very similar kind of technique to the hypnotist. People pressuring people into weird fringe religions. Particularly if you go and Google for some of the suicide cults, you'll find some of the techniques that are used are strangely and scarily similar to what a lot of the stage hypnotists use. You'll find that it is suggestion, peer pressure, and obedience, which are compelling people to, in the famous Jonestown case, go out and build the town and eventually drink poison Kool-Aid simply because some religious guru says this is a great way to serve God or whatever. So, let me move on and just tell you about some of the things which can be done using hypnosis. Some of the easiest things which will work on almost everybody. There's a thing called muscular catalepsy. This is the technical term for making parts of the body go completely rigid. It's normally done on the arm or the leg. Sorry to get you excited. It's you say to somebody you can't bend your arm and make it really rigid, and most people will find they then can't bend their arm, particularly if they're trying hard, if they're a good hypnotic subject. Someone who's just not even trying, someone who's out to prove you wrong, you say try and bend your arm or bend their arm. People who are kind of getting the knack of it, thinking, oh, I see how this is working. And it's very interesting. You see them sort of go, Ask them afterwards what it felt like, and they say, I knew I could bend my arm if I wanted. Somehow the desire to do what you said was so strong, I couldn't find the willpower to disobey you. And that kind of says neatly how hypnosis works. It's a bit like if you wake up in bed in the morning, as some of you possibly do from time to time, and the alarm clock's gone off, it's time to get out of bed, and you know that you've got to get off to work, and after lectures, studies, you're all really keen to get off and do whatever it is you do in the day. But somehow, the bed's nice and warm, the bedroom's cold, and there's just some things that hold you back in bed. Somebody. And you can't physically get yourself out. Nothing wrong with the muscles. You could if you wanted. You just can't get into the frame of mind where you want to get out of bed enough to actually do it. And in a very real sense, you can't get out of bed. Of course you could. The muscles are there. You just can't find the willpower, and so you can't. Someone at a school show said it's a bit like being in a school play. You go on stage, you hear the words, you know the cue, you know what you've got to say. Is it physically possible for you to say, I don't fancy doing it tonight, I'm off down the pub. Anyone wants to join me? I'll see you in the pub. Well, physically you could walk out there, there's nothing wrong with them, but socially, the pressure of the situation you're in is so strong that you know, no matter how good or bad an actor you are going to actually go through with saying the lines in the play. is one of the easiest effects to produce. Some stage hypnotists will say, I can prove that these people are really in a trance. I will prove that these people are actually hypnotized, because we will make them do something they couldn't ever do if they weren't really hypnotized. And they will take 2 chairs and they'll make someone's whole body go like a plank of wood. And you'll pick them up, you put their head on one chair, their feet on another chair, and you'll get someone to stand on their middle. And you say, look, nobody can do that unless they will. Yes, you can. It's perfectly possible for any healthy male to keep himself rigid across 2 chairs like that while someone stands on his middle, and it looks impressive, it looks astonishing, but there is nothing mysterious about it at all. It just works. It's one of those things that you can do, even though it looks surprising. You don't need hypnotism at all. Catalepsy is one of the easiest effects to produce. At the other end of the scale, one of the hardest effects to produce, but you can use hypnosis to make people hallucinate. Students save a lot of money this way. Hallucinations come in 2 sorts. There is positive hallucination or negative hallucination. Positive hallucination is the technical term for where you make people see things that aren't really there. I snap my fingers, you'll see an elephant walk in. And people, they say they see an elephant. They run screaming, they panic. Negative hallucination is where people don't see something that really is there. And perfectly real physical objects become totally transparent. Other people's clothes. We're getting keen on volunteering now, aren't we? There's a thing called time distortion. The next hour of your life will pass so quickly that it only seems to take up 5 minutes. Enormous practical value in post office queues or traffic jams. Or you can do it the other way around. You can say the next 5 minutes of your life will extend so that it seems to last for an hour. And there are applications of this, which some of you look like you've worked out for yourselves already. And you look so clean and laugh so dirty, I don't know. But, I think 5 minutes isn't bad at your age. You can anaesthetize people. And now we're getting into really interesting territory. How can you anaesthetize somebody with a purely psychological technique? Well, we know that people are anaesthetized using hypnosis. Very complicated and deep operations are performed on people. Root canal surgery. Joint operations. Now, whether... This is more one for the pain psychologists, the pain physiologists, people who know about pain, than for me, because I'm not medically qualified enough to do this. But I do know that they tell me how people experience pain, why people experience pain is a very, very tricky, deep question. How much of it is physiological and how much of it is psychological, we really don't understand. But you certainly can control pain to a huge extent using psychology. And whether this is all that's going on using hypnosis, maybe it is. I don't know. It's an area which is still one which is very mysterious. What I do know is that I can get people out of an audience. I do this at medical schools regularly. I just say, close your eyes and relax, because when you open your eyes, you will not be able to feel any pain in your left hand. I then give them a sterile scalpel, and I say, there you are, stick that in the back of your hand. And they will take the scalpel, they will stab it in the back of their hand, and they say they feel nothing. And they bleed. And there is blood everywhere. I did this at Bart's Medical School a couple of years ago. And normally when I do this, people will bleed. There's a little trickle of blood. You can hold it up to the audience and say, look, they've actually drawn blood with that. This guy, I've never seen anybody bleed quite so much in my life. He took this thing, he stuck it in the back of his hand, and pow, blood everywhere. I was just pleased he was at a medical school where nobody was going to, he had white trousers on. It couldn't have been more theatrically organised if I'd set it up myself. Blood all over these trousers, all over the floor, just from a tiny pinprick. He was really good about it. I was greatly relieved. He felt no pain. And you could turn it on and off instantly. When I say ABC, you will feel pain. When I say CBA, you will not feel pain. And that quickly, you see people stabbing themselves in the back of the hand. How much of it is psychological, how much of it isn't, I don't know. But let me finish with one of the most spectacular demonstrations of what happens when you're working with people, when you're tinkering with people's minds, as the anti-hypnotists always call it. You're interfering with people's minds, messing about with their brains. But But the really interesting one is when you change their memory. Because when you say to somebody, you can't remember your name, everybody knows that it's a bloody stupid thing not to know what your own name is. And you say to someone, what's your name? People say, I don't know. I can't remember what my name is. I know it's ridiculous. I don't know what my name is. Some people guess. Say, what's your name? Answer it. Everybody falls about laughing. I did this at one of the halls of residence in London. I said to this guy, what's your name? He said, Stripey. Who are you? No idea. Who are you? Can't remember. Absolutely. I got this girl at the end of the line. She was really wound up by it. I said, what's your name? He said, I don't know. I can't. He stood up and he said, she's called Stripey as well. I was at Bristol University. This huge, great rugby player waddled out to the front. Enormous, great guy. You know, the kind of guy who needs to get planning permission just to go outside. And has his own postcode, you know. And he waddles out, parks his bum across about 3 seats. Gets his beer got up into his lap. Great subject. I said, when you open your eyes, you'll be unable to remember your own first name. Sit up, open your eyes. What's your name? Susan! Classic moment. And the classic hypnotist test in memory distortion is where you tell someone there is a number missing from their memory. You can't remember there's a number 7. When people open their eyes and say, all right, how many fingers have you got? 10. All right, count them out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. That one doesn't count, that one's a thumb. I mean, people start saying things like that, you've got it. There is no way they're ever going to say the number 7. What's 4 plus 3? 8. What's 4 plus 4? That's 8 as well. What's half of 40? Oh, 14 doesn't divide by 2, it's just an odd number. And people will carry on, they'll tell you about the well-known film, The Magnificent 8. Often buy you a drink of 6 Up. But what's that symbol on your watch between 6 and 8? Oh, that's not a number, that's just the manufacturer's logo. A guy at the University of Kent, someone said to him, how many dwarfs did Snow White have? 8. All right, name them out loud. And he did. 8 names straight out. Happy, sneezy, grumpy, Snoopy, Dog, bashful, sneezy. Snoopy? 3 times through it took as well. That fluently to work out what the hell was going on, where this extra name was coming from. And the classic, the best we ever got was a guy at Imperial College in London who refused to believe there was a number 7 even when we told him. And someone said, well, look, what does the word 7 mean? 7? Says it doesn't mean anything, just a nonsense word. And we said, well, all right, say 7 between 6 and 8, and you'll find you've got the right number of fingers again. He looks at us, so we're mad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we said, there you are, it works. Oh, we said, that's so pathetic. You can tell me there's any nonsense word. You can tell me there's a number wibble between 2 and 3. Doesn't mean there really is a number wibble between 2 and 3. We thought, all right, we hypnotized him again. This time, as well as missing 7, you will find there is a number wibble between 2 and 3. Could we shake him on this every question we asked? What's half of 6? Wibble and a half. What's the wibble root of 28? All this stuff, he could just do it. He didn't laugh, he didn't make mistakes, just bang, 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 straight through. To show you how impressive this is, see if you could, a bit of audience participation here, just to shake yourselves up a bit. Try counting out loud. Now he could do this. He didn't laugh, he didn't make any mistakes, he just went straight through. See if you could do this. It only works if you all do this together, but everybody together, good and loud, with me, counting upwards from 1, putting in wibble between 2 and 3, and leaving out 7 altogether. You reckon you can do this? Yeah? Now this only works if you all do it, and you've got to do it good and loud so you can hear each other. I'm going to be with you, but when we start counting upwards, wibble between 2 and 3 and leaving out 7. You ready? Here we go. And 1, 2, wibble, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9. Keep going. 11, 12, wibble team, 13, 14, 15. 2829 Wibbleton. Wibblety 1, Wibblety 2, Wibblety Wibble. You're cracking up all over the place. You just sat there. What's funny about that? Okay, I've been talking long enough. I want to get on and do some demonstrations. Before I do, there's a couple of questions which all audiences want to know the answer to. And the first thing everybody wants to know is it dangerous? And the answer is no. I wouldn't be out here doing it if it were, and you'll see later on throughout the demonstration I do everything I can to be certain that I'm in no danger whatsoever. As to whether you're in any danger, again the answer is no, because there is no trance. This is purely psychological. It's dangerous for me to stand out and talk about saliva, what you all dribble down your shirts, then maybe what I'm doing is dangerous. But I don't think so. The Home Office don't think so either. They ran a huge investigation into the safety of stage hypnosis about 15 years ago. The conclusion, there is no significant danger to stage hypnosis. It's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. It's never good enough for the Daily Mail, who always want to print this, the kind of nonsense, you know, a woman goes to a hypnotist and is compelled to have sex with her washing machine afterwards. And, you know, when 3 weeks later a woman is shown to be a daft old bat who loves suing people to try and get money out of them and the instigation of her husband, the Daily Mail don't print that with quite the same prominence that they published the original story. And so for some reason it doesn't stick in the public conscience quite as much. But nevertheless, there are always people out there trying to do this. I, for my part, rely on the Home Office report. I trust them more than I trust the Daily Mail. You may disagree. The one thing I am concerned about, though, is that possibly somebody will get malicious about this and volunteer for one of my shows, deliberately intending to make some complaint against me afterwards, and is going to go around afterwards saying, oh yes, ever since Martin Taylor hypnotised me, I have been unable to get an erection. I mean, it's a typical thing, standard psychological type problem could easily be caused through a psychological technique, you see. But if he gets really aggressive about it and chooses to sue me, it simply comes down to whether I can find a better lawyer than he can, and whether or not he can make it stand up in court. And if not, I hope he loses his appeal, that's all I can say. But it's for reasons like that, I have to say, anyone who's thinking of taking part in the demonstration takes part at their own risk. The other question people ask, this is always interesting, people say to me, Martin, can you use hypnosis to make someone do something she doesn't want to? They always word it like that. The answer is, you cannot make people do things. The answer, I mean, like, I've tried. From my experience, who knows? Derek Brown said he made somebody shoot Stephen Fry on stage. I don't believe a word of it. My answer to this is you cannot make people do things they don't want to do. You can make people do things they don't want to admit that they want to do. And that fits in very neatly with the psychological way in which hypnosis works. I can never make people do things. You know, if you don't want to do the stuff, you won't do it. It's as easy, you know, psychology, you tell people to do that. No. They will if they know there's a trick. If they know it's Derek Brown who's given them this gun and said, go and shoot Stephen Fry with it, at some level of consciousness, they know that that gun's got blanks in. One of the things that, when I work, you know, when I do a cabaret show for students at summer balls, one of the things people always come up to me and say, I want to volunteer, but you're not going to make me take my clothes off, are you? They're not scared about taking their clothes off. What they're scared of is having their friends think they would do it to get a cheap laugh. But if they could blame me, I didn't know what I was doing, the hypnotist made me do it. All the responsibility comes back to me. Which leads me on to what I am going to be getting people to do on stage, because obviously this evening, I mean, even when I do the full show, even when I'm just doing it for cabaret, I don't like to use it just to embarrass people. But specifically this evening, we're going to be illustrating some of the things that I've been talking about in this first part of the talk. We're going to be taking some volunteers out and seeing what we can do with them, but we're not going to be using it as an excuse to embarrass people. We're not going to be using it to make people look complete idiots. You know, I'm not going to be telling anybody that someone in the audience has stolen your willy and you've got to run around and look for it. This is the way people get screwed up. You know, people are running around in the crowd on what he's got. What to him is a very real, maybe he considers it a real psychological problem. I don't know what's going on in his mind. What I do know is that he's turning to people who he thought were his friends for help. And do they offer him support? Do they offer him help? Do they offer him? No, they laugh at him. No, that's how people get get screwed up, and I think that's sick. If you're taking people on stage, if you're getting people out to help you, they deserve to be treated with some respect. We're going to be illustrating some of the things I've been talking about in this first part of the evening, and we're going to be doing it in a way which is going to make you laugh, obviously. We're going to be doing it to illustrate the scientific stuff. We're not going to be just using it to embarrass people on stage. There's always someone who comes up to me at the end of these talks and says, Martin, that was fabulous. If I'd known it was going to be like that, I would have volunteered too. Would you do me now? And the answer is no. If you want to come on out, you volunteer when I ask volunteers at the start of the second half. That said, it's now 5:20 tonight. Is anybody with burning questions that they think will be of terrific interest to everybody else here, or would you like to go straight into an interval? I'll take that as people wanting to go straight. No, certainly no burning. Oh yeah, one question there.
You mentioned M3.
Yes.
The NLP.
Yeah.
What's NLP?
Oh, I'm so pleased you asked that. If you have heard of NLP, which we have, about half. If you have any idea what NLP actually is, would you put your hand up? A few, but less enthusiastic hands going. People have tried to tell me what NLP is. I don't know. You know, they say, oh, it's a fantastic technique for improving people's attitude of mind. It uses this, it develops this. It seems to be a really wishy-washy mishmash of I'm really treading on people's toes here. It seems to be a really wishy-washy, half-baked mishmash of ill-thought-out ideas. No one has ever managed to explain to me clearly exactly what it is in terms of what it's used for, what it's based on, and it seems to be based on some strange ideas that you look up here if you're trying to imagine things visually, and you look up here if you're trying to remember things. Experiments have been done that show that just does not hold water. It seems to be based on the premise that some people remember things visually, and some people remember things audially, and some people remember things by feeling, which to some degree seems so self-evident that it's hardly worth bothering with, but to the extent they take it seems to be that they seem to take it far more than it merits. I really don't find anything worthwhile in NLP. I haven't looked at it in great detail because, to be frank, it bores me stupid. But, yeah, I'm getting into enough trouble over here. Is this going to be come back on NLP, or are we going to... Oh, it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's, yeah. Well, the person who does it closest to what I do is Darren Brown, which is not really surprising since, if I may indulge in a little trumpet blowing, it was me who got him into this in the first place. And I'm actually credited in his book with having started him out on this path. But, I mean, he's a very bright guy, he's a likeable guy, and he does his stage show based on these kind of principles. He's still a friend, we still meet up and talk about this, and we laugh about how neither of us knows exactly how it works. But his book is one of the best. The section on hypnosis in his book, Tricks of the Mind, is fantastically lucid, very well written, very good introduction if you want to find out a bit more about it from someone else's angle other than mine. Yeah, let's take one more and then walk aside. All right, we'll do it. Get on. What exactly is the difference between this and mentalism? Mentalism, broadly, is magic tricks which involve apparently doing tricks with information. That's the best definition of mentalism. Classic magic does tricks with packs of cards, with silks, with doves, women in boxes. Mentalism is magic tricks done with information. There's quite it appears superficially similar to hypnosis in some ways, and a lot of people will combine the two in one kind of show. I mean, Darren does, obviously. But mentalism is done with tricks, things that they don't tell you about. Darren says, at the start of his show, this show fuses sort of psychology, suggestion, magic, showmanship. He's using tricks, and he makes no bones about it. I don't. Everything that I do is real. There are no tricks in when you see when I'm doing a hypnosis show. There's one more question here, and then we'll go to the break.
Do you have any experience with self-hypnosis?
I've tried it. Generally, as with most hypnotists, you're getting so into what's going on. Oh gosh, does it really work like that? Does he think I've gone that deep? Maybe it's... And you analyse it so much that it's very hard once you've hypnotised other people. So I've not really got involved in that in a great way. But if you want to come and chat to me, then great. Okay, let's do the catalepsy thing, because you've been sitting there all patiently and watching this. Let's just demonstrate how we can get somebody suspended across two chairs without any hypnosis at all. I don't do this on other people, I do this on me, because if somebody's got a bad back, you can put their back out quite easily. But let's just get some volunteers, because it looks a bit impressive and it's something visual for you to see without doing any hypnosis. Let's have, who do we want out here? Let's take, if you two guys would come up and help me, and if you would come up and help me, and maybe if you come up and help me. I'm going to put the microphone down and your voice from absolutely, set them on and off. Come on out! We're not going to do this one yet. We just need you acting. You wearing boots, did you set those off easily? No. Oh no, that's an excuse. Go back. Sorry? Okay, you've got to shoot. Come on out. Where are the three guys? Three guys I asked to help me? One, two, yeah. You'd rather walk in? Okay. What's the plan? Emily. Emily, you want to stand here? Set your shoes on. Two guys, you stand behind me, one guy stands over here. Somebody comes over here.
Raise the camera up here.
Okay, two behind me. I'm going to fall back, you catch my shoulders as I fall back. Okay. You pick my feet up, you hold me by my shoulders. My feet go on the chair. Pick on that chair. Across here. We can take it a little bit further back, so it's more spectacular. And I can hold myself perfectly rigid. It doesn't take any hypnosis, it doesn't take any induction, catalepsy, or anything. Emily, if you just like to step up there, I'll take your hand. Just step up there, and you'll find that I can take you away. You know, is it high enough?
Yeah.
And I can take Emily's weight perfectly easily, without any catalepsy or anything. You take my arms, you take the feet, pick you back up to standing position. And we'll end the first half there. I'll see you in 5 minutes. Pushing you back, make it real in your mind, you'll feel yourself start to fall back, don't fight it, just fall back, getting stronger, let it push you back, don't fight it, let it push you back, and eventually, they all go back. Give them a big round of applause together, big round of applause, We did this to check they are all taking it seriously. Great response from all of you. We're now going to do the test I spoke of briefly earlier, the hand clasp test, where you are going to get your hands stuck together. Now, this is an easy test to work because it is partly physiological, quite obviously so. But if it doesn't work because you're looking around the room and you can't concentrate, don't bring your hands apart with such force that your hands slam into the people either side of you, because this does disturb their concentration too. If you can't concentrate and your hands do come apart, if you can't listen to what I'm saying enough, your hands come apart, just take them quietly aloud. Try not to let the people either side of you see out of the corner of their eye you couldn't concentrate enough to get it to work. I promise you it will work as long as you take it seriously. It's also a test to let people in the audience try. Anyone out there who wants to give it a go? It's harder to get it to work in the crowd, but I promise you if you take it seriously, you will get it to work. This is what you do. If you're sitting down, and yeah, all of you are, feet flat on the floor. If you can do this decorously in what you're wearing, sit with your knees apart. Obviously, if you can't, then don't. But if you can sit with your knees apart, please do. I want you to lean forward so your elbows are on the ends of your knees. Clasp your hands together, fingers interlocked, palms together about 6 inches in front of your face. And for the next couple of minutes, do not look away from your thumbs, but squeeze your hands together as tight as you can. If that's your idea of 6 inches, you're seriously underselling yourself there. Hands really quite close to your face. face and squeeze your hands together as tight as you can, pushing them, binding them, willing them together. Because in a moment, not yet, but in a moment when you try relaxing those hands, they will not come apart. Not yet, for the moment, just concentrate on squeezing them as hard as you can, staring at the thumbs, becoming obsessed with the thumbs, because when you try relaxing them, part of your mind will not let you let go. All the while binding, willing, squeezing, gluing, locking, pushing. They cannot, will not, do not come apart. I want you to imagine a puddle of super glue oozing between the palms, squeezing as hard as ever you can. I want you to imagine those, much tighter than that, much tighter, watching the knuckles going white as you're staring, willing, binding, gluing, pushing. Because when you try pulling your hands apart, the harder you try, not yet, but in a moment when you try relaxing them, much tighter than that, squeezing all the tension going right to the tips of the fingers, becoming obsessed with your thumbs, staring at them all the while staring at your thumbs. Because when you try pulling them apart, not yet, but in a moment when you try relaxing them, part of your mind will not let you. Much tighter, I want to see those knuckles going white. Imagine those fingers becoming steel claws, clutching, clawing, clasping with the opposite hand. Imagine them pushing so hard against each other, every little ounce of tension in your body squeezing right through to the fingertips, because stare at the thumbs, don't look away from the thumbs, it will not work. I want you to imagine the whole fist now welded together into one solid block of steel. It's one block of steel. As long as you're staring at those thumbs, as long as you're staring at those thumbs, in a moment when you try pulling your hands apart, they cannot, will not, do not come apart. And the more you try, as long as you're staring at them, they're absolutely stuck tight, lost, found, locked, bound, fast together, cannot, will not, do not come apart. And part of your mind doesn't want to let go. The more you try, the more impossible it is. Try pulling your hands apart now, but they won't come apart. Try pulling your hands apart, but they're absolutely locked. They refuse to come apart, and the more you pull, the more impossible it is. They're absolutely stuck. Your hands and yours alone now come apart, your fingers straighten. Your hands come apart, fingers straighten, your hands come apart. Your hands come apart, your hands stay stuck together for a bit. They're just going to fight back, squeeze tight, and now they're stuck, they're completely locked. Your hands come apart, fingers straighten, your hands come apart. Absolutely stuck. Your hands come apart, fingers straighten, your hands come apart. Anyone in the audience get it to work? Anybody out there still stuck? Hard to get it to work in the crowd, I know. Somebody over there, hold them up, hold them up, hold them up. Your hands now come apart, fingers straighten, your hands come apart, all the tension goes. Fingers straight, look at me, look at me. Look at me, your hands come apart, fingers straighten, your hands come apart, tension's gone, completely gone. How are we doing back here? One guy over here, your hands come apart, tension's gone, fingers straighten, and your hands come apart. That's all we're going to do in this part of the demonstration. I know about him, he's fine. Guy there with your hands still stuck together, come and stand up here. Because there are people out there who couldn't get this to work, didn't try it, and they think you're faking. Can you tell me you're faking? Yeah. Oh, you're faking. Let's go back in the audience. You don't want, no, that's fine. I mean, that's okay. No, we don't want people out here who are going to fake. You go back in the audience. But you weren't faking, were you? You never really stuck. I don't think you were either. Come stand up here a second. You squeeze them back together, and we'll tell. Because as you squeeze, and then immediately stuck, they won't come apart. Absolutely stuck, yeah? They will not come apart. They will not come apart. Yeah, pull on them. Show the audience. They will not come apart. They're absolutely locked.
I'm actually struggling to get these apart. I can't explain why, but it's just, yeah.
They're absolutely locked. They will not come apart. We haven't fixed anything up before?
No.
Never met before?
No.
Look so pleased about it. I did this at a show the other week. There's a sixth form show. This girl came up about 16, 17. I said, we've never met before. She looked up at me and she said, not since last night. Right there in front of all the teachers. I think it was so embarrassing. I just didn't recognise her. Watch. When someone's concentrating as well as this guy, you can even extend the suggestion. I'll snap my fingers, the tension goes from your hands, your fingers straighten, your hands come apart, and now the tension just dissolves away, but it moves up your arm into your jaw. Squeeze your teeth together. Your teeth are stuck. You can't open your mouth. Try opening your mouth, but your teeth are stuck. Show the audience. He's absolutely locked. His teeth are stuck together. They won't come apart, so I snap my fingers now. Mouth opens, mouth opens. But you just got back from the dentist, and your jaw is all relaxed and floppy, and when you try speaking, just empty air comes out. You can't articulate. It's all just burbly noises. How you feel?
What?
You put your tongue out, you find your tongue won't go back in. Your tongue just sticks out. You're just losing control of your tongue. It flops backwards and forwards. It will not.
I don't know.
Back to normal. Feeling good?
No, that was really weird.
Really weird, but it's not faking, is it? Because they don't believe it, so you have to tell them.
I don't think I'm faking it.
And I don't think you're faking it either. What's your name? How do you sit back down? A huge round of applause. See, the jury's retiring. One or two people got their hands apart. Who got their hands apart without any trouble at all? I know there were one or two who did this. Okay, probably easiest if you guys can go back in the audience at this stage, but thank you very much. The one guy out there whose hands did stick together, if you want to come on up, no pressure, but it is your last chance. In fact, Andy, if you want to come and sit, I'd like you to sit here. I'd like the girl from the end of the line next to him. That's fine. And I would like, how are we going to do this? I would like you to move to the end of the line, and I want the new guy to sit next to the guy in the black sweater. This is the stage of the traditional show where the hypnotist would spend 20 minutes swinging a watch telling them they were all going into a trance. You now know there is no sleep, you know there is no trance, you know it is all you doing it because you want to do it. Nevertheless, as I explained, you sit there with your eyes open, which I could do, but they'll just pull silly faces and make you laugh. So I am going to ask you to close your eyes for the next few minutes, not because you're going to sleep, but simply to stop this audience pulling faces and making you laugh. So all of you close your eyes. 3 things I want you not to do. Please do not open your eyes. Do not go back in the audience unless I ask you. And above all, don't talk. I want to see what kinds of people I've got on stage. Obviously, it's a very unusual audience for me. I don't know which kinds of tests are going to respond. I'm going to produce the best response from this audience or from your personalities. Different personalities respond to different kinds of suggestions. So we're going to do 3 very different kinds of tests, and we'll see what works on you. We're going to start out with a very easy test based on the hand clasp test. I'd like all of you to put your left arm straight out in front, stiff and straight at the elbow. Everybody do that now? Straight out in front. I want you to make that arm completely rigid. All of you should be able to do this because you ordered the hand clasp test. I want you to make that elbow so rigid in the moment when you try bending your arm, it just fights back, it will refuse. Not yet, but when you try relaxing your arm, it's stiff, it's straight, it's a bar of iron, and the harder you try bending it, the more it fights back. Try bending your arm now, it just refuses to bend, it's locked in place. Excellent, 100% success. Your arm will relax when you hear some music, but the music you're going to hear is violin music. When you hear the violin music, I want you to take an imaginary violin in your left hand. I want you to take an imaginary bow in your right hand, and I want you to play away on an imaginary violin. Are you ready? Your eyes closed, arms relaxed, play the violin. Right here. Exactly what you're doing, but you're still playing away. In a moment, the music will change to piano music. You're playing, you're at the keyboard of an imaginary piano. You ready? You're playing an imaginary piano. Here we go. And the audience will give you a round of applause. Excellent response. The second test is very different. The second test is a sensory test. In a moment you are going to hear this noise. The next time you hear that noise, you will feel a little itch in your face. I want you to imagine an itch in your face exactly as if it was an insect crawling around on your face. When you feel that itch, show us all that the test has worked and rub where it itches. As soon as you put your hand to your face, the itching will stop until the next time you hear the sound of the horn. But when you hear the horn, as soon as you hear the horn, I want you all to rub your face. You ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4 hands come to faces up and down the line. There's 5. One guy this isn't working on, it'll work on him the next time we try it. You see what happens the second time. You see how much more quickly they rub their face the second time as I go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands come to faces. And the third time I try, your hand will fly to your face almost instantly. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the hand goes straight to your face as I go. And immediately people rubbing their face right up and down the line. That test I'm not going to clear. In a moment when you open your eyes, you will still need to rub your face even after you open your eyes. Even after you open your eyes, you will still need to rub your face when you open your eyes. We'll do another test, again, a very different sort of test. There's a leaflet or something down there. Could you just pass that up to me? Thank you. I'm going to read to you from this thing someone's just given me. This is Survivor's Voice from Europe. And what have we got here? I'll just read to you a little bit that they've written to... this is a bit heavy. Let's take some imagination, but I'm going to notice, you'll notice something really rather odd. Because
as I read to you this message from Richard Dawkins, has this just died on me? Yes, it has.
As I read to you this message from Richard Dawkins, you're going to notice something really rather weird. Because whoever wrote this, when Richard Dawkins wrote this, he put all sorts of clever jokes in it. There are puns, there are double meanings, there are double entendres. And as I read, you're going to giggle, you are going to chuckle, you are going to find this is one of the most funny pieces of writing you have ever heard. And you are going to start to be helpless with laughter. Just listen to this. See if this doesn't make you fall about with laughter. Here we go.
I believe the sheer aesthetic excitement of understanding
why we exist is among the highest experiences the human mind is privileged to enjoy. That is the first among the virtues of scientific education. But of course there are others,
ranging all the way down to the sheer
usefulness of science. Not just scientific knowledge, but the scientific way of thinking,
which might be even more important. Critical thinking and
rational thinking. Oh, this is the really good bit, listen to this. I am not afraid to fight
for reason, for science,
and for an undistorted enthusiasm for the real world, properly understood.
I invite you to join me.
Okay, I've finished reading, that test is cleared, that test will no longer work.
Remember, when you open your eyes, you will still need to rub
your face when you hear me go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think we probably need a fresh battery for this. This is what you're running around, chasing around.
A little bit of pieces.
Possibly, but not as well. Okay, let's see. This isn't working.
We switched to the world's smallest microphone. Okay, we'll do one more test. How's the time? We've got to be out of here by 1:30, so we'll put it straight on. I will do one more test when you open your eyes, and it's this. When you open your eyes, you will find you cannot remember your own name. Now, of course you know it now, of course you do. When you open your eyes, you'll think you know what your name is, but the moment I go over to you with the microphone, it's there. It's on the tip of your tongue, but you can't remember your name enough to say it. 2 tests for when you open your eyes. You can't remember your name, and you'll rub your face when I sound that horn. 2 tests which will immediately clear when I blow a football whistle. As soon as I blow a football whistle, you'll remember your name. As soon as I blow a football whistle, you'll find you no longer rub your face, just because I sound that horn. But until I blow the football whistle, you have no idea what your name is, and you'll rub your face when you hear the sound of the horn. With that test in your mind, those 2 tests, as I open your eyes, an audience, I think a huge round of applause for them. And again, to demonstrate the truth of what I was saying, you were responding pretty well to a lot of the tests. Could you tell people over the past few minutes, were you asleep?
Quite close.
You were close to being asleep, okay, that's unusual. Did you black out or lose consciousness? No. Did you go into any kind of zombie state? No. Stage hypnosis doesn't work that way. I don't believe in hypnosis. My whole act is hypnotism without hypnosis. Do you remember what you did? Of course you do. People think they're supposed to forget. You know exactly what you do when you're under hypnosis. Do you believe it's still going to work now you've opened your eyes? Because I've got no doubt at all. Been doing this far too long. Watch what happens to them all as I go. You rub your face now. Why did you do that? Weird, what's it? The fan comes up almost. Why did you touch your face on that?
No, because he did.
Because he did. You rubbed your face. All it takes is for me to go. Why are you putting your hand to your face?
Reflex.
Reflex. Do you think you could not do it? Could you keep your hand in your lap if I were to blow this horn?
It would annoy me to do so.
It would annoy you to do so. Try keeping your hands by your sides. Try not rubbing your face. Do you think she can? Watch as I go. And people can sometimes hold for as long as 15 seconds. She's managed 10. She's managed 15. And she'll rub it again. She'll rub her face in a second when she thinks we're not watching us. Okay, so somebody like you, there's no way you could ever keep your hand in your lap. It's like you see the wrinkle comes up there. Back in your lap.
It's almost sadistic up here doing this. I think you are realising that it is working. Oh, there you are, we got you. Whatever it is, whether you call it hypnosis, whatever it is working very well on you, yes?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. You are one of the people who I've introduced myself to, yet I don't actually know what your name is. Could you tell me what your name is, please? What's your name? Don't laugh at him. Look at the expressions on the faces of the rest of them. Because some of them are laughing along with you, and some of them are looking really quite worried indeed. What's your name?
Lauren.
Look at me. Now it's gone. What's your name?
Gemma.
And now it's gone. I still okay. Not different tests work on different people. But on somebody who's a really good subject like this, there's no way you could ever remember their name, is it? You just look by the blank look in his eye and the way it's gone. What's your name, Abby?
Abby.
And now it's gone.
Abby.
Okay, still sort of slowly fading there. No idea, have you? What's your name? Just
It's Grace.
okay. Different people, different tests. Any idea?
Right.
Yeah, the tests weren't working that well on you. However, and your name's just gone from your memory. What's your name?
My name is,
That easy. But all I need to do to bring their name back, all I have to do together to remember their name, it's simply a matter of me going over to them. It's simply a matter of oh, there it is. All I need to do to clear the tests, it's simply a matter of me going. And now, you are
George.
George.
Gemma.
Great to meet you. Abby.
Lauren.
Kate.
Everybody has their name back, and a test which takes a while to build up also takes a while to die down. You will notice a huge difference as I go. Yeah, we clear that 100%. You're standing there with the microphone, is that not working? Let's give it a go. Is this working? Well, we'll see. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to the radio. I can keep the pound mic with it. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you, Anne. We'll give this a shot. That's all we want to do. What? Oh, turn it off, you say? Okay. On, off. There we go. Right, let's leave it over here, where I can knock some water over to it. That's all I want to do with a whole bunch of them. Let me hang on to who for the last part of. I'll just do something very quickly to finish. Let's keep the four at this end. Okay, so if I hang on to George, Abby, Lauren and Kate. If I keep on, if you three would go back, let's give these three a round of applause as they go back. Back down there. And we can just do some really quick and easy things over here. What we can do is we can say to Abby, when you hear me or any, no trance, no hand waving, no when you go back 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, deeper and deeper, none of that kind of crap. It's not necessary. All you do is just go over to someone and you say, Abby, when you hear me or anybody else on stage say the word ping out loud, I want you to say the word pong straight back to them in a good loud voice from now. So we go ping,
Pong.
ping,
Pong.
and you'll find it's almost impossible to fight if I go ping,
Pong.
we can even do a really quiet one. I can go ping,
Pong.
Okay, you are plasticine girl. Wherever I put the hand, it just stays locked in place. If I put that hand there, it just stays there. If I put that hand over there, completely locked in place. Completely, if we pull that one up there, it's completely stuck. We push that one out there, it completely stays locked in place. And one more over here for George. George, when you hear me or anybody on stage say the word pong out loud, especially if it's Abby sitting next to you, you will shout the word ping straight back to him with such complete conviction the audience will not believe it. From now, as we go pong,
Ping. Pong. Ping. Pong. Ping. Pong. Ping. Pong. Ping.
I could leave them playing table tennis all night, but it's best if you just give them a round of applause, right? That's it, it's clear, that's it, it's clear. That's it. to do one more test, and I want to do a test which is not going to play for laughs, because I think that you're a little bit of a more intellectual audience than I normally work to. I want to do something which is going to frighten you. I joked in the talk about how we do the anaesthetic, and we're going to do it now. But I need a promise from you. Because there are rival hypnotists, people who go around trying to discredit my act, saying Martin Taylor does this act, and he takes a great knife and sticks in people's arms, he pushes needles through their flesh. We do not use a knife. We do not use a needle. I use one of these. What I have here is a sterile doctor's autolet. Let me reword that. It's a doctor's sterile autolet. He had the operation early this morning. These things are guaranteed sterile. I get them from a medical supplier. They're the tool that a blood donor session would use to get you to take a sample of blood, and I would never use these at all if they were not guaranteed sterile. George, if you just take that for a second and check, it is indeed, the seal is unbroken, it is what it says it is on there, and there is nothing. There's no danger of infection. We have one person who we haven't yet used for their individual test, someone who is sitting behind me at the moment, looking a little bit nervous as she's realising what she's letting herself in for. I forgot your name? Lauren. Lauren, you don't have to do this if you don't want. Because we're going to actually anaesthetise someone's hand to block pain. You don't have to do this if you don't want. I think you would be the best subject to try it on, but I will ask you to give your permission in front of everybody before we try it. But before you do say, let me reassure you, this will not hurt at all, as long as it works. Are you happy for this?
Yes.
That's wonderful. In that case, if you'd like to pull your chair slightly forward, and we will use Kate. So, yeah, Kate, if you just look after all the bits and hand them to me as I need them. So, that one I need it. These bits can live over here, and also if you hand me that one I need it. Because the first, if you're right or left-handed, right-handed will use your left hand, just rest your left hand there. And the first thing I'm going to do is wipe the back of that hand with an antiseptic swab. So there are no bugs on the back of the hand. You just hold on to that for a second. And this one it is just a little bit easier if you close your eyes, please. Just close your eyes and relax. There's no sleep or trance, but you just have got your eyes completely relaxed. Because one of the tests I'm going to give you is this. Let me, first of all, break the seal on this lancet. And I want to touch you very lightly on the back of your left hand with the point. I'm sure you'll feel that normally. Yeah, you felt that normally? That's fine. When you say ABC out loud, Lauren, there will be no feeling at all in the back of your left hand. So say ABC out loud now.
ABC.
As I touch you on the back of the left hand, there's now no feeling at all for the point of the lancet. Do you feel anything there? Nothing. When you say CBA, the feeling will immediately return. Say CBA.
CBA.
And now as I touch you, I'm sure that's completely back to normal, yeah? That's fine. That will remain with you even after you open your eyes. So sit up, open your eyes, take the lancet in your right hand. I was being very careful because obviously it's not very nice to stick something into someone when they're asleep. But now it's in your own control. You can be as vicious. That's the laugh cue. You didn't pick up on it. This time you can be as vicious as you like. They'd love to see some blood. But before you do, ABC out loud.
ABC.
Now try that in the back of your left hand. Is there any pain at all?
No.
You can go jab, jab, jab. You can still, yeah. You put your finger on the end of it if you want. If people want to photograph this and come on in, I don't know whether the camera people are. If you want to come right in and take close-ups of this. Yeah, absolutely nothing. You can see she has actually drawn a little spot of blood on the back of her hand there. Yeah? You got that? You got it? That's fine. Say CBA out loud.
CBA.
Now carefully try the same thing. And that hurts, doesn't it? Yeah? ABC?
ABC.
Jab, jab, jab. No flame? CBA?
CBA.
Try it again. And it hurts. That, I think, is one of the most spectacular demonstrations. Oh, sorry, do you want more? Yeah? Just a second. We there? We're done? We've got the pictures. That, I think, is the most spectacular demonstration of the power of suggestion. You saw there was no sleep or trance. As I put this back into this little tube, ready for tomorrow night's show, there are 3 things which we ought to give to Laura. Firstly, the alcohol swab to staunch the blood, which is quite a bit of blood coming from the back of that hand. That's the first thing you deserve. The second thing you deserve is a plaster to go over it. Are you happy with that? If you'd like to just seal that all up. But the third thing, which you deserve far more than either of those, is a terrific round of applause. That is all I have time for. Before I go, just a couple of things. Actually, before we go, I think we do need to clear all the suggestions we put in people's minds. So while Lauren is doing that, George, if you just close your eyes a second. If you close your eyes. Okay, if you close your eyes. As soon as that's done. Wonderful. Thank you, Grant. The rubbish over here, take your chair back in the line, and close your eyes. Because when you open your eyes, all the tests I've given you are completely clear. There's going to be no more shouting ping pong, your hand is completely back to normal, and there's going to be no more plasticine woman. I will do 2 more tests though for a definite time limit. One which is quite advanced, one which is quite easy. When you open your eyes, you will find that water will taste like your favourite drink. Whatever it is you like to drink, water will taste like that drink. I leave it entirely up to you, whether it's alcoholic or not. But that test will clear as soon as you leave this hall. As soon as you step through a doorway, water is water once again. But as long as you're in this room, water will taste like your favourite drink. And secondly, right at the end of the show, when I ask for a huge round of applause, you will not be able to leave the stage. Because when I invite you to go back in the audience, your left foot will stick to the floor. The only way your foot will come free is if either I shake your hand or the audience stops applauding. As long as they are clapping, as long as they are cheering, your foot will stick to the floor. But the moment my hand touches yours, your foot comes free. 2 tests, and only 2 tests in your mind when you open your eyes. Water tastes like your favourite drink until you leave the hall. And when I say good night, your left foot sticks to the floor, but it comes free as soon as I shake your hand. With those tests in your mind, sit up, open your eyes, and audience, I think, a big round of applause. Somewhere we have a disclaimer. If you'd like to contact them or just to say that you're happy. That is all I have time for. Before I go, just a couple of things by way of farewell. Firstly, thank you hugely for getting me out here, and particularly thanks to the organisers who are so brave getting an act in like this to do a show like this. They've been rewarded. You've been rewarded with some fantastic volunteers, and if you've enjoyed it even half as much as I have this evening, then I've enjoyed it twice as much as you. The mathematicians out there. The best way to thank me is to tell people. My name is Martin S. Taylor. Take a flyer. My website details are on here. It's hypnotism without hypnosis, so it's very easy to remember. If you want to take a flyer, you can read what Ricky Gervais had to say when he saw my magic act. You can read what Darren Brown had to say when he saw my hypnosis. But it's all on the website, hypnotism.co.uk. And of course, if you want to book me for your own shows, if you book me for private parties and things, you get a show which is nothing like as intellectual as this and can be an awful lot ruder than this, if that's what you want for entertainment, for a party show. But do get in touch if you're interested in booking me for your own entertainment. Remember my name, Martin S. Taylor. If anyone is interested in self-hypnosis, I do self-hypnosis CDs. All the stuff I talked about in the talk is on these. These are £10 if you want one. If you'd like a DVD, again, I prepared DVDs, not only the whole demonstration, it's a very short demonstration tonight, but everything from this demonstration lots of clips from other shows. So if you want to see people thinking the hall is invaded by killer penguins, if you want to see people hallucinating the elephant, if you want to see someone in a shopping mall thinking he's an eccentric millionaire giving all his money away to celebrate his birthday, I put clips from television shows, magic shows, me escaping from a straitjacket. They'll all be on the DVD. But because I particularly want this show to be on tonight, so that you can see it if you want it, you can't get the DVD right now. Do come and see me if you're interested in the DVD. These are 10 quid, you can have one right now. These are 15. I aim to get them out within 2 or 3 weeks. If you want one, come and see me. Other than that, well, the only thing for me to say, of course, is to remind you that my part in this is just a presenter. All I do is act as a catalyst. The people who really deserve your thanks and applause, well, everybody who came out, but especially these 4 behind me. And to thank them for being such great subjects, if you'd all maybe like to stand up. Why don't we all stand up? And Lauren, and the first sip. Tell people, what have we got there?
Is that peach schnapps?
It's peach schnapps. Abby.
Orange juice.
Orange juice. Kate. Mulled wine. And finally, George.
I was having JD and Coke.
JD and Coke. Well, the good news is that's pure water. But until you leave this hall, as much JD and Coke, mulled wine, whatever you're drinking there, all on tap to thank you for being such great subjects and helping me out here. And to finish my act, as I say goodnight, and as they do their best to try and get back in the audience, my name's Martin S. Taylor. I am the hypnotist who doesn't use his